Daily Detroit is brought to you by the community. Support our work at patreon.com/dailydetroit.
Hello and welcome to your Daily Detroit for Wednesday, February 3rd, 2021. I'm Jer Stays.
And I'm Cheyenne Oserini.
Today, we're talking about some stories to know around Metro Detroit and then an update on Ford's restoration of Michigan Central Station with Austin Giesey, project manager for Christman-Brinker. Shy, that's a fun one.
I am looking forward to this one, so let's just get started, Jer.
All right, let's kick off the show with a discussion around unemployment rates. New data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics shows that Metro Detroit is not in a great spot compared to the rest of the country. It, along with Las Vegas, had the highest unemployment rates in December at 10.1%. Las Vegas only edges out by 0.3%. And just so you know, because they draw the census maps kind of in an interesting manner, that Detroit, Warren, Dearborn area that they're talking about encompasses 4.3 million people, and it stretches basically from Detroit, all of Wayne County, you got Oakland County and Macomb County kind of north of Flint, but it does not include Flint or Ann Arbor. So it shows that basically the pandemic has hit us pretty hard. And then if you zoom in even more to what they call the Detroit, Dearborn, Livonia area, which is basically Wayne County south of 8 Mile, that unemployment rate is up to 12.4%. That compares with a 6.5 national unemployment rate, 6.5%. This isn't great news for our area.
As somebody who also used to live in Las Vegas, I can say I still have a lot of friends who live out there, and they have been hurting a lot out there. Lots of tourism, right? I mean, that it's killed that industry completely. As for us, it's really sad to see how high our unemployment rates are right now, but this pandemic just keeps going.
And the disparities are big, especially, if you're somebody who's a white collar worker, you've been able to a lot of times work from home, do different things. And now, of course, every single situation is different, but they've been able to weather it a lot better than the blue collar workers. And on top of that, that recent unemployment data that showed in the country that all of the jobs that were lost nationally, basically, those jobs were all lost by women who left the workforce.
Well, yeah, because who's going to be staying at home with their children while they go to remote learning, Jer? It's not going to be the husbands.
I know it's been a lot of juggling for us here on this team and also for you.
I mean, I'm incredibly lucky that I have the flexibility for the show. But in the beginning, when the pandemic hit, it was very, very tough for us to juggle. So I feel for all of the women who have had to leave the workforce. A lot of them didn't want to leave the workforce, but had to because they needed to take care of their children. So I see everybody out there who have lost their jobs because it's impossible to juggle all of this all at once.
Well, from one disparity to another, a new report from the University of Michigan shows that Black Michiganders with COVID-19 suffered worse health, socioeconomic, and other outcomes than white people. Key findings from the study, and it consisted of 637 surveys from COVID-19 survivors in the state of Michigan, that more Black than white respondents reported severe or very severe symptoms, a significant number. More Black respondents reported increased social stressors since the start of the pandemic, with 26% or more than a quarter being unable to pay important bills like their mortgage or rent. Just 10% of white respondents had those issues. And then another interesting factoid was that more Black respondents, nearly a quarter, were afraid to disclose their COVID-19 status to their friends or family than white respondents, which were about 10%. Now, some people in the triggered online internet have thought, oh, we're making everything racial. But I think this is not about like how COVID strikes, but more highlighting the inequities of the healthcare system in general. We've had long-standing inequities when it comes to healthcare nationally, statewide, and in the city of Detroit. And in Metro Detroit, we have a long history of segregated and unequal healthcare.
There was a time where doctors were taught that Black people didn't feel pain as much as white people did. And so there is still this unconscious bias in the healthcare field when it comes to Black people and other minorities. So that is why there's a bit of distrust with the medical field when it comes to Black people, unfortunately.
And then you also have the income disparities as well as wealth disparities. I mean, the reality is that African-American families just on the whole do not have as much wealth as white families do. And that's just a fact.
And when you don't have money to go to the doctor for just checkups and regular upkeep with your health, everything compounds on one another. You know what I mean? It's just mind-boggling to me.
All right, let's get into a couple of retail restaurant stories. This first one is about Little High Flyers. Cheyenne, I remember you covered this place when it opened.
I did. They were located in Midtown, right on Cass and Canfield, by Nora. And unfortunately, she has decided to close her brick and mortar location.
Yeah, I heard you say were, and I was like, oh.
It's really hard with the pandemic. And, she's a mother of two. And like we talked about earlier, things are really hard right now for moms. She has decided to go just sell online. So if you are looking for any adorable baby or children's clothes that are very curated and, ethically sourced and, sustainable and all of that stuff, check out Little High Flyers online. So let's head up to Greektown, Jer.
Yeah, the Golden Fleece, which I think this year is celebrating their 50th anniversary. I'm not sure, but I think it's right around that. Anyway, they've done a remodel. I've seen some of the pics. The last time we went, Shy, we actually went for a birthday for you a while ago, a couple years ago.
I think it was like 2 years ago, Jer.
Yeah, 2 years ago for your birthday, right back when we started this thing. It was starting to show some of the signs of that age. That valley between historic and cool and kind of dingy.
Yes, it was a little long in the tooth, but the food was still really great. I really do love the Golden Fleece. It reminded me of the Greektown of old, before
the casino and all that. Remember Trapper's Alley?
Oh, Trapper's Alley. Many people might not know this, but I am a transplant from Denver. And my father lived here. And so when I was a freshman in high school, I moved to Detroit to go to school here. My first field trip was to the DSO at Orchestra Hall. And for lunch, we had lunch in Greektown. I remember walking through Trapper's Alley by myself because I didn't really have any friends then because I was the weird new kid. And, I just remember the experience of walking through Trapper's Alley and the waterfall and all the cool little shops and everything. And so Greektown just has like a special little spot in my heart. It was like the first place where I had octopus and all that kind of stuff. It's one of those things where like I think about old Greektown. When I think about the Golden Fleece, I think about the way it was back when in the 90s, which is aging me.
Right. Well, the nostalgia always gives you a little bit of a rose-colored glasses, and I'll fully admit that.
Absolutely.
There were two places. There was a place that had all kinds of like little models that would be sold. I got some model wooden boats from there that was on like the second or third story. And then the fudge shop that was down in the bottom on the first floor, right? Where if you were to go in to take the people mover on the side there of Greektown, there used to be a fudge shop there. And I remember that as well.
I'm excited that they, did an update. The pictures on Instagram, on their Instagram page, look wonderful. And you know what, Jer? They kept the floor. They kept the same tile floor.
I saw the big old crack and I was like, yes. Yep. I know that sounds crazy, but I saw the cracked floor and I was like, okay, this is a remodel that maybe didn't get rid of everything, but a little bit more of a cleaner look. For me, though, I got to ask you, what do you get there?
I usually get the chicken Euro plate because I don't eat lamb, guys. So I always go with the chicken, and I love it with extra tzatziki sauce on the side to dip my fries in.
See, I do like the tzatziki. However, the only lamb thing I eat is a Euro. That is the only lamb thing I eat because it's so good.
I try, but no, it's not for me.
Joining me on the line is Austin Giesey. He is a project manager with Christman-Brinker, and most of all, he's working on Michigan Central Station. Welcome to Daily Detroit.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Appreciate it.
I'm glad to have you because I saw some of these pictures that Ford sent me on the plaster, and I was just blown away with the work. If listeners don't know, I remember the station when it was still near the end of its day, but still alive. When I was in elementary school, my dad actually took me on a train trip through the working station. This is in like the mid-late 80s, 86, 87. I don't remember exactly, but I remember the station. I remember going to Ann Arbor and back and him saying, you've got to see this place because I don't know if it's ever going to be open again, if it's going to be torn down, all this other stuff. And I remember being so short and seeing a building so tall and then going in and visiting with the media previews and things like that. Longtime listeners will know we've been in the station a couple of times and seeing it be just as grand, even though I'm easily, twice the height, 3 times the height now. For you, what has been the joy in working in this one before we get into the detail work, which is just starting to become stunning?
Well, firstly, the building is still very tall. I can tell you, I'm 5'10", and every time I walk into this thing, I can relate to, holy cow, this is a giant building. So it's funny you say that. Don't worry. It's still there. As far as the excitement, we're very excited to continue on this process. The designers, Quinn Evans, has been working through diligently to develop drawings, and we're able to get those into contracts and into plaster restoration contracts specifically. So we're ready to get going.
Why such the work on the detailed restoration? I've seen so many buildings come back and frankly, they talk about restoration. There are some things they do. Maybe they do a couple of key things, but you all are like scanning ceiling tiles. And recently I saw a video of this giant stone cornice that got recreated out of like marble or granite or whatever. Like why the attention to detail on this one?
Well, it's purely to talk to Ford's vision for the Corktown campus and bringing back such an important monument to the city, to the state, and even to the country. Many of our ancestors, were brought over through the train station process, through Michigan Central, and Ford wants to do it right. As simple as that. There's a lot of details that go into the design process and just making sure this is restored to its period of significance, which is the 1913 when it opened. But in general, it's important for Ford and to the designers and to the entire project team here to make sure we get it right, to make sure the details are replicated and are restored. It's a huge passion of our industry to make sure that our client is satisfied, but luckily Ford's vision is for the city and the state and the country to be satisfied as well and to deliver great, streamlined, autonomous vehicles.
Well, from a project management perspective, I want to dive into the challenge here because the top line data that I understand is that you've got 56,000 square feet of decorative plaster work underway, 18 months ahead with 3,000 cast plaster pieces. What's it going to be like juggling all that?
Based on experience, it's a process. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. However, there's certain steps in that process that need to be had early. There needs to be an early survey. And we need to evaluate the different plaster conditions. As you said, 3,000 cast plaster pieces. We're going to be restoring using 3 techniques: 3-coat plaster, ornamental plaster, and then veneer plastering. And all of those will combine into, replicating the existing fabric that was once intact. And so challenging, yes. Doable, absolutely. We have the right trades, giving complete credit to the guys and gals in the field that perform this work. They have the experience necessary. It's an extremely, ornamental and decorative art, plaster restoration and decorative painting, but it's something that we'll just take step by step and make sure we get it right.
What kind of blend of craftsmanship and then also technology is going to be used? Because there's so many photos of Michigan Central to kind of compare with the condition that it's in right now. I mean, I know from my last visit to it, there was just a lot of stuff that had been fallen off or, water damaged or all those other things. How is that marriage going to work?
It's still very much a conversation, right? There's these new tools that are used in a lot of industries today, 3D printing and things of that nature. We intend to utilize as much as possible. But in general, we're going to use traditional molding methods. We had an early bid package to take molds of what was still intact while we could, just in case any further deterioration may have happened. But in general, it's a pretty straightforward process of trying to capture and document what's existing and recreating those documentations.
Well, I understand, too, that there will be floor-to-ceiling scaffolding, and it kind of makes me think with the Gustavo Vault that we've got our own little Sistine Chapel here.
Yeah, it's so monumental in terms of size, even to folks that have done similar work in the past and restoration projects. This is huge in stature. So that grand waiting room, the historic waiting room, is going to be a sight to see when we're done. It's the lines and the florets and the decorative ornaments. People are going to be blown away when it's done.
Well, and how is the project timing with everything going? COVID's thrown a lot of wrenches in a lot of people's plans.
Yeah. I would say COVID has brought challenges to the team. However, I think, with Ford's leadership and Ford's safety, we've really prepared and been on the cutting edge, if I can say it, in terms of planning and having a backup plan if something were to happen. All the measures are being followed for the executive orders that Governor Whitmer, continues to make sure that we're safe. So it's been challenging, yes, but that's our job. We balance a lot of different items that come our way, and schedule-wise, we are on schedule. And I'll leave it to Ford because there's a lot that goes into the schedule question based on the Corktown campus, but we're still tracking good, and we don't expect any different.
What excites you most about working on this?
Every day, it seems, I come into work and there's something new being discovered or found, and it's such a unique, historic preservation in general is such a unique sector of the industry, right? You have industrial, we have education or hospitality or, medical, different sectors of construction. And what excites me the most is I just get to walk outside and see the old become new again, the worn down become restored and grand. It's just, it speaks for itself, and you're so proud once something's restored back to the way it should be. Because like you, I have relatives that used to tell me all the time about how they used, my grandmother grew up in Corktown, and she walked down with her church group and they sang Christmas carols in this giant waiting room of the train station. And growing up, I saw this ruined building, and I said, "You did what in that waiting room?" And she goes, "It was every year tradition for us to sing." And so now I get to see, as she tours through the buildings, as Ford releases communications, people are excited, and that's what excites me every day. The Michigan Central Facebook post and all of their social media that communicates the status of the job. Everyone is excited, and we're all, pulling for Detroit to make a continued improvement and comeback. And this building just speaks to, totally long-winded answer. I apologize, Jared, but that's what excites me is how the effect it has on the community.
I mean, it definitely has been palpable. It's something where for so many years, Michigan Central was the poster child of Detroit being an abandoned city, right? Like every media outlet. A number of years ago, I worked with the Detroit Regional News Hub. So I worked with international and national journalists telling Detroit's story. And what was stunning to me is the first thing everybody wanted to talk about, everyone wanted to see, was the abandoned train station. Something that I can't tell you how many times someone in some accent said, "It's like Rome," or something like that, right? They just couldn't believe that it was sitting there. And then to see it, start to flicker to life. And now really, I mean, if you drive by that site, it's not as much now because people are more inside because it's brutally cold, but especially whenever it's a little bit warmer out or all those other things, you're still seeing like tons of activity of people getting to work and doing things. And you see the scaffolding and the supports kind of be on the outside of the building. At night, you've got different light showing. I shop at Honeybee Market right behind it. That's where I go do my grocery shopping.
Oh, yeah. We love Honeybee.
Oh, it's so good, right? The guacamole is second to none. But like every time I go get some guac, I like look out there and I'm like, this is amazing. And even the most cynical hearted of Detroiter who's, for me, I've been around the city for a couple of decades and I'm used to projects failing. I'm used to, before the last few years, I'm used to a lot of press releases and a lot of grand vision and not very much happening. And even the most cynical of hearts gets warmed because the resources are there to get it done and it's moving forward.
Yeah, we are so fortunate that a company such as Ford, who already has such a history in Detroit and really has shaped the way that we are today, was able to, sponsor and buy this building and try to restore it. You're exactly right. And in my opinion, to this topic, a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? You look at these abandoned Detroit websites and publications. I love buying books, these historic Detroit books that have pictures of a train station during its ruin period between, 88 and 2018 when Bill Ford Jr. and Ford Motor Company and Ford Land bought the building. It's great to see the befores, in all of its grandeur and as it was delivered back in 1913. However, it's also fun to see the ruined state and then see how we're already making improvements today. It's so refreshing and it's so impactful on the community. So your point is completely taken. You're right.
Well, and I think it's a credit to the people working on this project that the progress is so visible. Like so often you see restoration jobs and it's kind of like, well, there's a few things here, there's a few things there, but like this seems to be cooking with gas.
For sure. And oftentimes trades may not get the exposure they need, but the guys and gals in the field that are doing the work, they're the real heroes and the people that are putting this into place. And yes, progress is being made and it's visual. First steps of making a building stable again are removing, deteriorated portions or, roofing or whatever it may be. Totally. And you mentioned the Capitol, the limestone Capitol in the front of the waiting room. Yeah, a hugely visible item that is necessary for us to complete our restoration. You cannot give enough credit, and the local unions, the National Maintenance Agreement, all turn apart into the restoration here.
Austin Giesey, project manager, Christman-Brinker, working on Michigan Central Station. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. I appreciate your time. I could keep going, but I'm glad you gave us a stop.
All right, that'll do it for this episode of Your Daily Detroit. I'm Jer Stays.
And I'm Cheyenne Nocerini.
Take care of each other, and we'll see you around Detroit. Talk tomorrow.